Hello, this is Joachim from TRR266 Accounting for Transparency and the Open Science Data Center. So we are here for another short video on our research on corporate transparency repository and the steps that you need to do to work in this repository. So we set up a GitHub Codespace. So what you're currently seeing is this GitHub Codespace in the cloud running in your browser that you can now work on, right? In principle, we could now start to work with the code here from inside the Visual Studio Code repository. We could start R on it, we could run it, and that will work. So that's fine, nothing wrong with it. But most of you that are familiar with R, you might be more familiar with RStudio. So this is why this container that we set up for you in this repository actually starts RStudio server. See this little command here? Okay, so so this means that there is an RStudio server instance running in this container. So this sounds technical, and it is. So let's look at how this looks like for you from the user side. In order to find out the address where this RStudio server is listening, we have to click on this little thing here. You see that? Named forwarded ports. So you see this little antenna. So that means it lists the ports, so the addresses that this cloud instance is actually sending and listening to. Okay, so here you find one address, a forwarded address that links to the port 8787. So 8787 is the standard port of RStudio server. And this is our RStudio service address, right? So it's gibberish because it's a temporary cloud instance. So this is why it has this fancy name, didactic telegram something. But we don't care about this. We only care about opening up this URL in our browser. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now we are connecting to the forwarded port, and what we see is a typical RStudio server login page. Now, you wonder, what is my username? What is my password? Since this is running locally, essentially in your computer with this cloud address, so the URL here is private and the username and the password is actually standard. So not your normal username that you use maybe for your institution or whatever, just the username RStudio and the password RStudio. Okay, wonderful. Now we can sign in, and we don't have to save our password, right? So this just confuses. So, and now what you see here is the RStudio environment in our cloud instance in the Codespace that has been offered by GitHub for us. Isn't that great? So we can now work in this repository in the cloud instance exactly like we would work in a repository that we have cloned locally. For this, we need to set up a project. So RStudio is organized in projects, and we can set up a new project here. And the one thing to remember is that this project, it has already been cloned in this cloud instance, right? It's already there. So we don't have to use the version control to clone a repository because it's already in an existing directory, and this is why we use existing directory. So we set up existing directory, and then we have to identify our cloned GitHub repository. This is that one. Yeah, so obviously there aren't that many repositories because the cloud instance, the development container, only holds this one repository. So we choose that one and we create a project. Perfect. Okay, so now we have created a project, and it looks exactly like it would if you would have cloned the course repository locally to your local development environment. The advantage is that we have already installed some packages. Yeah, so let's check this. Okay, let's see which packages we have installed. You see, this is quite a list, right? So because we installed the whole tidyverse package, And we also installed some special packages, for example, fixest for fixed effect estimation, or we installed model summary. It should also be somewhere, right? You know, it is not included here because it's just too long of a list. So essentially, that means that this whole thing is actually ready to work, right? And we will see this in another video where I will walk you through one of the first script files that are included in this repository. But the good thing is now you are all ready to work in your own cloned version of our courses repository in the cloud. So meaning you are able to work with the code of the course even without having any device that holds a local development environment. You can simply do this in the browser using a cloud instance provided to you by GitHub Codespaces. I like that. Okay, see you around for other videos on how we actually use the code in this repository. Thanks.